All right. And we're live. Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Shanna is with me.
Hello, everyone.
How is everybody tonight? Just a second. All right. And we're starting a little late.
Hello, everybody.
Thank you for sticking around and waiting on me because I'm fashionably late all the time. But welcome tonight. We have a very special guest with us. We have Teresa, who went to college with Georgianne Hawkins, who was Ted Bundy's 7th victim. Welcome, Teresa.
Hey.
How you doing?
Thank you. I'm doing pretty good.
Well, thank
you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Everybody's really excited to hear what you have to say and kind of hear, what you guys all went through when this all transpired.
Sure.
So this was, I say we just get right into it, right? So this was what year?
Sure. It was 1974.
Wow.
And I was a freshman in college at the University of Washington in June of 74. So it was a long time ago, but it doesn't seem like it in many ways.
Yeah, you told me that it all seems really vivid to you still.
Oh, yeah. Yes, it really does. It was, it's probably a combination of the fact that there is still a lot of info and a lot of stuff going on around Ted Bundy, especially because I believe his execution was just January 24th, which would have been 1989. So I think that was in the news. There's movies and, Netflix. There's this, it's really tough. But, back in the day, it was nothing like it is now. But yeah, I mean, it was pretty hard to put away and just not be affected by it.
So have you watched the new Netflix Ted Bundy tapes?
Yes, I have watched that.
Okay. Did you find it to be pretty accurate from everything you remember? And was there new things in there that you didn't know?
Yeah, it was, I thought, I had not read much about it. I purposely sort of just just watched it fresh. And I was absolutely sucked in. They had news clips and things that were long forgotten. Back in those days, they just didn't. You can't find that stuff online anymore, or ever was. And so I thought they did an amazing job. And of course, I was very interested in that time, the beginning, because at the time when it happened, nobody had Ted we didn't know it was Ted Bundy. It was just these girls were disappearing seemingly once a month. And as a young 19-year-old freshman, I mean, life was pretty easy at that time in our lives. I mean, University of Washington, where we lived and where Georgianne lived, I happened to live actually next door to her, but we were right on 17th Avenue, which is Greek Row at the University of Washington. And it's across the street from the college. And it was pretty much its own community. There wasn't a lot of police or, it was typical college. And the night that she disappeared was the week of finals week. It was June 11th. I'll never forget that because we don't get a huge number or amount of really warm days. And that particular week, we had like really nice weather. And so everybody was out. I mean, it was just music and parties, and people were at various stages of finishing their finals for the week. And truth be told, we were all just pretty carefree. I mean, it was just random walking anywhere and everywhere. And each sorority and each fraternity, we were side by side. I mean, literally elbow to elbow in proximity to each other. And so the idea where Georgianne was just this darling young girl who was just at the peak of her cuteness, just really fun and normal 19-year-old girl 19-year-old girl, just enjoying college life. And we were in many activities together, and I would see her at various parties, and her boyfriend happened to be in a fraternity that was just a few doors down from our houses. And I had so many friends in that house. And I mean, it was just a community. I mean, we were all just sort of all united in the realm of college life. So I specifically remember seeing Georgianne a few days before her disappearance. And she was pretty, she was a fun girl. I mean, she was just this cute little spitfire, about 5'2", long brownish hair, just darling figure, and, just tan. And, in those days we all had I think the styles actually come back, but cute little backless tops and bell bottoms and short
Aw.
shorts. And,
I love
we
it.
were
I love it. Yeah, I was
really
born in the
loving,
70s,
yeah,
so
we were just loving it.
yeah, I bet. And it was carefree. You guys were away at school,
Oh,
away from the
totally.
house, just
Oh
living
my gosh.
life, right?
It was so carefree that we would, sadly, I mean, I grew up moving to Seattle from my small town, which was in the other side of the state. I mean, it was just a whole new scene for me. And I was pretty innocent. We all were in that sense. But yeah, I mean, it was just anybody and everybody could roam and go anywhere and do anything. And the idea that she was, taken out of in this back alley and, poorly lit and all that. I mean, it was a thoroughfare for us. I couldn't tell you, there was probably not a day in all my years in college that we didn't go in that alleyway. And where her house, where she was walking and where she had been and where she was taken was no longer than about 60 feet. I mean, it was just so ridiculous,
So it was
that he was
typical,
just
like
sitting there waiting.
it's somewhere she would have walked back and forth to her
Oh yeah,
boyfriends all the
absolutely.
time. Like it was just the way she took home. It was no big deal. No one
Well,
felt creeped out.
yeah, apparently, from what I remember, and from, obviously, I'm trying to make sure that I'm grabbing my memories, but, I can't say that I haven't read books and stuff like that, because that was all part of, my experience in living this was that, and I'm going to go back to my memory, is that particular night I happened to be out of the U district. I was babysitting actually for my sister, and I came back the next day, and there was all this police action. There was all these people in front of her sorority, and our houses were next door to each other. I mean, honestly, I could pass a roll of toilet paper next door. I mean, that's how close we were. And there was so sad. Probably the saddest thing I remember of that whole experience was her boyfriend, whom she had actually gone up to visit that night that she disappeared. She had been to a party with one of her sorority sisters that was a block or so away from his fraternity. She was walking back. Her sorority sister said, "Hey, I'm going to head back to the house." And Georgianne said, "I'm going to stop and say good night to my boyfriend." And her boyfriend was studying. Georgianne had to study. And they were, this is what we were all talking about, is her boyfriend said, "Do you want me to walk you home?" And she said, "No, I'm fine. I can, I'm good. Let me go." So she walked out, and she was only there for a few minutes. Walked out, and there was a basketball court in the back of this frat house. And one of my friends, a good friend of ours, saw Georgianne, and he was sitting on the perch of his second floor window, and he sat and chatted with her for a little bit. And she had a Spanish test the next day, and she's just, they're chatting for about 5 minutes and chit chatting, and he can watch her, walk almost to her sorority. I mean, there was only like 4 houses away. So he even all volunteered, "Do you want me to walk you home?" And she said, "No, I'm good." So she walked, apparently, from, fill in the blank of what he has now said, because on right before he was executed, he described what he did to Georgianne. It's so terrible.
I do
But
have the
she walked
audio of
out.
that, Teresa. I didn't know if you wanted me to play it tonight, but I do have the audio.
Oh no, I'm fine with that.
Okay, yeah, go ahead. We'll play it a little later, but I do have that audio. It's pretty shocking, honestly.
Yeah,
so,
it's awful.
Well, she walked out, and she apparently he had seen her as she was talking to my other friend, the guy friend, and he, his ruse was a cast or crutches,
yeah,
whatever. And so he positioned himself so that he was coming the opposite direction as she was heading down towards her sorority. And he asked her if she would help him with carrying his briefcase to his car. And she, being as sweet a girl as she was, of course, sure, he dropped it right when she walked by him. And then he crutched his way back opposite. Now, if my friend had if he had stayed at that window for maybe one more minute, he would have seen her turn around and walk in the opposite direction with Ted Bundy. But he left. He walked. Wow. He left, and he. We all lived with that. What if and why didn't we? And so going back to, next day, not to lose track, but her boyfriend, not the guy at the windowsill, but the boyfriend who did not walk her home. He sat on the steps of her sorority and would not leave for days. And that was the saddest part, was that he wouldn't leave, and they couldn't get him to leave. And, it was the end of the year and people were going home for summer, and he wouldn't leave. And it's kind of weird in the
That's
Netflix.
So sad.
Yeah. On the Netflix show, there is a part, if you watch the part about Georgianne, there is a couple of clips of somebody sitting on the steps. I kind of had to stop it and look. And at one point, it sort of looked like it was him, but then they showed a different version. There was a girl sitting there. But that's what we were around, was just these people sitting. We were all just sitting and milling around her sorority because, she was gone. And we, in June, when she disappeared, like you said, Jay, it had started in January, and once a month there was a girl missing. And so we were all sort of, that's weird. Somebody else is missing. And, it was just kind of that atmosphere of dread, like who's next and what's going to happen.
Yeah, you were kind of on guard about it.
We were, but, we didn't have a name I'm going to say that because it was at the end of the school year, I actually packed up and took off and went over to back home where I was from. But as we came back that next fall, and it was a good 15 months before anybody, actually in July, I don't want to get too confused here, but after Georgianne disappeared in June 11th, and then July 14th, he took two girls at Lake Sammamish, which is a little lake on the east side of Seattle. And that is when he started he goofed, and he introduced himself as Ted to a lot of people. Not everybody went with him. And so that was when we got a name to the face. And one of my dear friends, after that was put together, a man with a cast, a young kid with a cast named Ted, she said she was approached that weekend by a guy in a cast, and she didn't go with him.
Oh my gosh.
And she went to college and high school with me. So he was just roaming around, just looking
for an opportunity.
Well, yeah, right. Teresa, didn't he admit later, he said that he, a week or two before this happened to Georgianne, he went and scoped out the sorority house and that whole entire block and just kind of sat and was watching the girls come in and out. So he did that prior.
What was so frightening, absolutely, is that the next day, according to the reports and according to what he told, and I want to jump on your audio that you have later, but that he came back the next day because when he knocked her out, which was only a block away from this alley where he had taken her, he hit her so hard that her earrings flew out of her ears and a shoe came off. And he rode his bike back to where he hit her, and he picked up that evidence and drove all these cops, sitting there. And everybody was just sort of, we were all just dumbfounded. We just didn't know what to do. Nobody really knew what to do. Because we didn't have anything to hold on to other than these other girls had disappeared. And so, with that being said, that following year, when I came back as a sophomore, our whole world changed. There was going out alone. Everybody, anywhere we went, there was always with a buddy system. The fraternity guys would volunteer to walk us to class, and if you had a night class, you always had to have somebody with you. And we didn't have phones. I don't really remember if I did that. I still know I took chances, but it's
just
one of
because
those
you're
things we never
young.
thought
Yeah.
about. Absolutely.
What did your
One
parents
thing,
think when all this went down?
oh, they were horrified. Horrified. I wasn't telling them a lot. They didn't know that I had a boyfriend that lived on the other side of the street where, Greek Row was like two sides of fraternity. So fortunately I didn't have to go on that alleyway, but oh my gosh, what we would do, which is so bad, is that in order to get into the front door, you had to pay $100 for this key that after 11 o'clock at night, you had to put $100 down. Well, none of us had $100. So we would just prop a rock open in the back.
God.
Wow.
All of us slept in a sleeping porch. There's like 20 girls in bunk beds. And when he went off the rails is what he did. He got into a back door and went in and just went room to room and killed people. And we had that door we had a special rock that we hid. And, we'd come in and out all night, time of day and night, at night after 11. So all he had to do was watch us do that, and he would have pure access to our.
God, it could have, and it could have been any of you girls,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Gosh.
That's so true.
I can't even imagine what that felt like. I mean, obviously you're sad because this sweet girl is gone. But then on the other hand, you guys are all like, oh my God, what's next,
It is pretty frightening.
So how long in between her being taken and this party at this park where he tried to grab, was it 2 girls? And he said his name was Ted.
Yeah, it was
like a month, right?
It was 6 weeks. 6 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, not long. So what do you think about, I have a question, Teresa, like, what do you think about the whole slip up he said about the van? He said, at first he's like, I hit her and I pulled her out of the van. I mean, the car. Like, do you think that he could have possibly stolen like a university van or something, like some people suspected, to take her to his car? Or do you think that was just really a slip up?
Yeah, I'm not that familiar with that. I don't know. Are you talking about Georgianne in a van?
I'm talking about when he did the confession, or just kind of basically said what he did. It was just one little blip. He said when he was pulling Georgianne out of the van. And then he was, and they were like, van. The guy was like, van. And he was like, whoa, car.
Well, right. And I think the detective caught him on that, because when he was at the end, when he was in Tallahassee, he took that little 12-year-old girl and he had her in a van. But Georgianne and all this Seattle was all this VW. This little
That's what I thought.
That he had taken. Yeah, he had taken the passenger seat out so he could lay her down or lay his victims in the seat. And that way, he would hide. Like he did a lot of premeditating where he hid the crowbar like under the car and had it parked in a nondescript parking lot. And, they believe, after I done some research that, he had, like you said, he had scoped out the area. He knew, honestly, he lived 5 blocks from our sorority. He lived a stone's throw away. It was his hometown. That's the thing that's so frightening, is all of these areas is where we just lived. It was where our hunting ground was, and the bars and all the places he went to, were places we all went to. And after I graduated from college, I moved up, still in the area, but about half a mile away from the fraternity area. And one night I was looking out my window, and this lady was milling around, and I asked her if she was lost, and she goes, no, I'm looking for such and such address. And I go, why? And she goes, that's where Ted Bundy lived. And he lived like a block away.
Oh my God.
Where I lived after college. He didn't live there anymore, but he
Wow.
had moved.
Yikes.
And I'm like, can I get away from this guy? I mean, thank God I didn't have any personal one-on-ones, but it's like everywhere I looked, it was like Ted Bundy haunted me.
Wow.
Mm.
Super icky. Yeah.
It's very scary. Very scary. Now the night that it happened, were you at home at the time?
Actually, I was out of the area I was babysitting that
Oh,
night.
that's right. You said that.
But that particular night, that night, and I'm not sure, it must have been a Saturday night it must have been a Sunday night because she had a final the next day. I'll have to look that up. June 11th, what day of the year that was.
Yeah, because I remember when Ted Bundy was talking about it, he was remembering details about how she, when he knocked her out and put her in the car, like she came to and was like
Right.
talking about, oh, we're supposed to study for my Spanish final or something.
Right.
So
She was a really good student. Right.
I heard she was straight A's, right? Straight A's.
And that she was brilliant, really good student. And the other thing I remember that was really sad was that, so I'm looking at the date. The date was a Tuesday. And I for whatever reason, I was babysitting. I was very odd that I babysat that night. But one of the things I remember, she didn't come home, like, nobody knew the next day, June 12th. I mean, we were all just going to college or going to our classes or tests or whatever. But it kind of got word out. Have you seen Georgianne? There's somebody missing. She'd come home. And all hell broke loose is when she didn't go to her final because she was such a good student. And that was a really big determining. That's when the cops came in, because prior to that, it was like, oh, she might be with a guy or, what. They didn't sound the alarm bells, but they checked with the professor. And that was when then all of a sudden the media showed up and the cops showed up, and she didn't go to take her test. And that meant that there was another missing student. Now, prior to that, there had been a girl missing in January. Somebody was taken in February. Somebody was taken in March, April, May, June, July. Almost every 30 days, there was a college girl missing. It was unique because, sadly, it was getting a lot of attention because they were college women, educated, good girl types, not your Green River Killer types.
Right.
They were girls that were, on the up and up. And so it got a lot of attention.
Wow.
Whereas sometimes a missing girl might not get that attention.
Right.
If she wasn't, they were college girls that never would have, their parents, oh my gosh, they never would have done this. I never would have not expected. And that's what with Georgianne, when she didn't show up for the test, was when they knew something bad had happened. I mean, it was almost instantaneously.
Mm. Yeah.
I can't even imagine.
Somebody asked if her body was ever found. In his confession, he had gone into detail, and I don't want to jump on you, Jay, because you're probably going to talk about that. But
no, go ahead.
Well, he was into necrophilia, and he was also very concerned in being caught. And so he, two of the Lake Sammamish girls' bodies were found in one spot, and they were scattered, but they were found in September. They disappeared in July. They found them in September randomly. Just some hunters came across their bones in about 30 miles outside of Seattle in the woods. And then they found some other bones scattered, but they didn't ever found her head. And he admitted that he cut her head off.
Oh my God.
I don't want, it's just so gross. And all the while, he has a girlfriend in Seattle. He's living with a girl right 5 blocks away from all this.
Can you imagine?
Reported him. Yeah. He just goes, go home and head out and take her out. And, she did report him. I mean, she called the hotline and said, I think my boyfriend might be the killer, but they didn't pick up on it right away.
For real? I did not know that.
Yeah. Yeah. She was so upset that he had cast plaster of Paris. He had the Volkswagen. His name was Ted. He fit the description that at the Lake Sammamish. They actually got a physical description, and she goes, "Oh my God, that's him. That's him." And she calls the hotline, and they were like, "Well, we've had a lot of people call, so thank you." And they didn't jump on it right away because he was such an upstanding man, just Mr. Personality.
He wasn't the profile. He didn't fit the profile of someone who would do something like this. And that's, and that's how
I just have a hard time. I'm watching all these clips of him and stuff, and I personally don't think of him as handsome. I mean, I guess I think this Zac Efron movie is supposed to come out and it's supposed to be just this gorgeous, drop dead. I look at him and I go, he's kind of creepy.
His eyes look creepy, but is it because we know what he's done and we know who he is? But I feel the same way. I don't look at him and think, damn, he's a good looking guy. I don't think that.
He ain't nothing to write home about. That's for sure.
No.
Well, I think that it's the way he talks. I was just saying it to my husband tonight. I said, I don't know if he's this cocky sort of, ever always had the right way to express himself, but that would have interested me. I mean, I think I'm too sarcastic enough or too, I don't know if I would have bought his line, but then again, if somebody's there in crutches and they're, fumbling and say, "Can you help me?" I'd probably say, "Yeah, sure."
And he looks like an upstanding person. He doesn't look like someone who's shifty or, the typical person that you want to walk on the other side of the road because you see them coming towards you. You would, just think they're a regular person. Yeah. God, that's awful.
Well, the girls he approached Lake Sammamish, there were some of the girls that did go with them really picked up a real creepy vibe from him. Like, oh my God, he was staring at me and following me. And that was kind of, he was in his frenzy. He had this, frenzy, this entity that he described that, he took one girl and did what he did with her. And then he came back and got another one a couple of hours later. And, by the second go around, he was in somewhat of a frenzy. And, then he'd sell that, and then it'd be out of his system for a couple of weeks, and then he'd have to go and do it again. But then he moved to Utah. After July, there were no more Seattle. Well, no more that they know of. But
so the two girls at the park were the last two in that area?
Yeah, those were the last two in the Seattle area.
Probably because he gave his name and realized, I better get the hell out of here.
Right? Yeah, and then the girls started disappearing in Utah. Honestly, I mean, he left in August, and I think in September, a girl ended up missing. October, November, the girl, Karen Campbell, the girl in Colorado at the ski resort. I mean, it was just like clockwork. I mean, the guy was.
He just had to keep doing and doing and doing. Teresa, I don't want to cut you off, but I want to introduce you to another co-host that signed in. His name's Oni. I don't know if you've seen his channel.
Hi, Oni.
Hi, how are you?
She's watched our channel.
I'm a big time fan of you.
Oh, thank you. How are you guys? So, what a crazy encounter to live through.
Do you have any questions?
Yeah.
So you're I mean, you lived and breathed this basically. And didn't he kind of work from like the West Coast to the East? Like he started in Seattle, California, and then kind of went across made his way from, right?
Well, he went, I think there may be things that nobody really knows, but from what they know that he started in Washington, and in the early 70s, 1974 is the first girl that's been attributed to him. In January of 74, and then January, girl missing, February, girl missing, March, April, May, June, July.
Oh my gosh.
In that realm, there was one every 22 to 30 days. Somebody ended up, and then he went for two for one on July 14th. Then he was always kind of dabbling in law school, but never really doing very well. And so he got accepted in the Utah law school, and he drove down to Utah, and then girls started disappearing down there. So Utah, 2 or 3, 4, there's quite a few YouTube channels about the Utah disappearing women, and really interesting. And, then in Utah was the gal, Carol DeRoch was the one girl that he tried to take in a mall. And she got away. She got her in her car.
Yeah,
and so
she was in the tapes there.
Story.
That interview with her was really interesting.
It just gives me goosebumps. I mean, she is amazing because he got her in his car, and then he tried to handcuff her, but he messed up and got 2 handcuffs on one wrist, and she got out, and she was able to nail this guy. And then he got arrested for that kidnapping. And then he escaped. Jumped out of a second-story window at the jail. He's Mr. Charmer, so they let him be alone in this law library and during this trial for Carol. He knew he was going to get nailed, and they left him in this room, and he jumped out of the second-floor window and took off. And 7 or 8 days later, stupid idiot, he went out in the woods, and this was in Utah, and he couldn't last very long, and he ended up driving back into town, got pulled over for traffic infringement, got back in jail, and then he got called in. Then he got extradited to Colorado because there was a couple of people missing, and one in particular was Karen Campbell at a ski resort where he took her from an elevator. She went up to say, this is the saddest story, sitting with her fiance in the ski lodge saying, I'm going to run upstairs and grab something. I forgot something. We're going to dinner or going to go have a drink. She's on the second floor hotel room, hits the elevator, disappeared, never showed up again. Nobody knows where she is. They find her body like a month later, frozen out in the snow bank. And he was seen there, and they nailed him with gas receipts and whatnot. So he was on trial in Colorado for her, and he escaped again. And that he escaped on New Year's Eve in December of 1977. But 3 weeks later, he was in Tallahassee, Florida, and he got into the sorority at the Chi Omega House and killed 2 women and attacked 3 other women. And then a week or so later, he killed the 12-year-old girl, and then he got nabbed. Another traffic violation. So he was Washington, Oregon, Colorado, Utah, and Florida, and he was ultimately executed for the 2 girls, Chi Omega murders, and Kimberly Leach. He was given the death penalty for her, the little 12-year-old girl.
Didn't he sneak into a sorority house and bludgeon a girl that was in bed?
He got into the house. He walked in with a piece of. He grabbed a log that was outside the sorority, and he walked in, opened doors, and just started beating the girls one after the other. And the first 2 he killed, and then the next 3 survived, but who knows what their condition was. And then he walked downstairs. He walked down the stairs, walked out the front door, and then walked about 2 blocks later, broke into another house and beat another girl. And her roommate overheard her, like some rumbling, like, what's going on? And they opened the door, and he had escaped. And this girl, she did survive, but she's like totally ruined her life. And it was horrible. And it was, I hadn't realized that it was only like 2 weeks or so after he escaped from Colorado that he went on his frenzy in Florida. But I'll never forget that as a person sitting there going, oh my God, Ted Bundy's escaped. I mean, we were all so scared.
I couldn't imagine.
We thought he's going to come back to Seattle. He's going to come back up here. And these, he was gone. I mean, how could somebody be so stupid to not keep him chained? Because he's just such a charmer. He could get in and get these jailers to just say, "God, he's a nice guy." Up until the minute he was executed, he was trying to get get people to come on his side.
Sick son of a bitch. Wow.
I know. I remember when he got executed. You guys
I do
probably not
too.
even born yet.
No, I do
but
remember. It was in
I was 9.
89, right?
I was 9.
I was a
So my
teenager.
kids,
I was in high
my
school.
children are probably you guys' age. The kids knew that I'd been so affected by this, my children. And they're like,
Can't imagine.
"Mom, are you so happy that Ted Bundy got executed today?" I'm like, "Oh my God, what have I created here?"
Oh my
They
God.
didn't really understand. And my son wrote for his, what he's most thankful for. I'll never forget this. At school, I think he was like in second grade or first grade or whatever. And they had to write, "What are you most thankful for?" And all the kids had written their family and their pets. And they'd written all these cute little cartoon, little family things that they could bring home for their families for Thanksgiving. And my son presents me "I am most thankful for Ted Bundy getting executed in an electric chair." And they drew this whole picture of Ted Bundy executed. And I'm like, "Oh my God."
The teachers are
I need to stop talking about this. And, he's totally normal. He's a great 32-year-old, perfectly normal kid. But, they heard me talk about this and from what they could understand. But yeah, crazy.
Yeah, I was 15 when he was executed. And I remember hearing it on the radio, them announcing that Ted Bundy had been executed. And I live in Michigan, so I remember hearing it on the radio, and I was like, oh, God. The only thing I ever watched about Ted Bundy prior to, hearing him get executed, or even up until recently, was the movie with Mark Harmon.
Yes, that was Stranger Beside Me.
Yes.
That was a good movie.
It was a really good movie.
Probably one of the best ones. Yeah.
And I feel like he did such a good job portraying Ted Bundy. He really did.
Mm-hmm. I think that now that since then, I mean, it's probably kind of dated and whatnot, but oh my gosh,
yeah.
I remember.
I think that's what makes it kind of creepy, is that it is dated.
Yeah.
You watch it and it's like
exactly
kind of takes you back to that time.
Well, about whenever the Anne Rule book came out, The Stranger Beside Me, I was young. I want to say it was probably written in 1979, 1978. It was right when he was arrested in Utah and whatnot. And probably close to that. And I bought the book, and I was single and living with roommates, and I read that book. I was so scared. And my husband, who at the time was my fiance, I remember he took that book from me. He goes, "Why are you reading this?" And I said, "I don't know. I just have to read it. It's just I don't know." And he took it and he threw it in the garbage.
I'd be the same way,
go, "Okay,
though,
fine.
Teresa.
I won't." I won't read it. And then he left, and I went and dug it out of the garbage. I said, "I am reading this book."
Yeah.
And he doesn't remember that, of course. He wasn't affected by it, although he was at Lake Sammamish the day that the girls disappeared. He doesn't have any memory, and there was obviously nothing that he, knew at the time, but the coincidence of him being there that day is kind of weird.
Absolutely.
He was there. He goes, "Oh yeah, I was there that day."
So he saw the whole frenzy when they realized these two girls were missing?
Nobody knew. Yeah, I mean, nobody knew at the day that they disappeared. No, because, one of the girls, the first girl was single, and nobody even noticed that she was missing. And then the second girl, her boyfriend just thought, she got mad and walked off. And it wasn't until later in the evening that they kind of figured that something is off here. Mm-hmm. It was such a different time. It's just hard to remember that. Mm-hmm. How did we function? That's what I want to know.
I know.
How did I live in that time? What happened? I mean, what did we do with ourselves?
I know.
It was a normal life, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, it's a testament to your resilience. I mean, I commend you. I think it's awesome you're able to move past that, and
for sure,
it's a lot.
It's I'll just say a little bit about, it did really, I guess the effect of it was that I'm just a big crime girl, and I don't know. I almost feel like that kind of spurred me into wanting to be an advocate for these young people, and just I'm interested. I don't know why. Maybe there's something wrong with me, but obviously this is what you guys do too.
Yeah,
So
no,
I found
you're amongst
you're
company, like here.
Yes. Preaching to the choir.
Yes.
I have to admit, I did not know this whole world was out there. I mean, I forced my husband to watch Forensic Files in 48 hours, and he hates all that stuff. And I'm just like, he goes, "Why do we have to watch murder every day?" And I said, "I don't know. I just have to."
Sounds like
That's
my
me.
house.
Me too.
Yeah. He does not get it. And people that don't get it, you can't explain it.
No.
How do you explain it?
You can't. But do you feel like this made you have the interest, or did you kind of feel that way before?
No. This really affected me.
Yeah.
It really did. Because it was just so close. And I don't know, I can't put my finger on it, but there are other people that I went to school with and that lived in that, and I have to remind them. I just had a little reunion with some of my friends from that time, and they're all just like, "Oh, what?" They weren't. I don't know. It just, the empath in me. I just thought about her boyfriend, and I thought about her, and and her parents, and no, I mean, and the fact that we walked that alley and we propped that door open every night, and and just her friend, one of my good friends, actually, she was a high school friend of mine. She's in the Netflix video, and she's looking out the window, and I go, "That's Leanne." And Leanne went on, interestingly enough, she went on to become like TV star, movie star, like she's this like famous girl, but she'll never, I remember just talking, she was one that did have a very close relationship with Georgianne, and I just saw her on that little clip back when she was just a little 18-year-old girl. We didn't know what life was going to be.
And I can't imagine being you guys, and like, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but I just can't imagine being you guys in college, carefree. Your friend goes missing. You're not even sure what happened to her because she's not found. And how do how do her friends grieve when you have no closure and you're young and then you're scared? I just can't imagine all of the emotions that you guys went through as teenagers dealing with something like this.
You're so right, because back in those days, that particular year of that, my freshman year, my brother died suddenly in February of that year. And so I had this horrible situation in my family, and he was only 14.
Oh my
gosh. And it just happened real quickly. And so, but I have to say, nowadays people actually provide some sort of
support
bridge for grieving, and there's, candlelight vigils, and maybe some of that can get overdone, but there is something about mutual group grieving. There was none of that then.
Yeah.
Nothing. Nobody had that. I mean, she was like gone, and we're all just left. Oh my God.
Just left hanging.
What do we do now? Yeah, there was no follow-up. I mean, when we came back to college, and the reason I mentioned my brother is that was the same, the grief. There was no bridge to grieving. There was nobody sitting there saying, "Well, we'll have grief counselors there if you need to talk to somebody. We'll have people available for you. We'll do a candlelight. Nothing." It was like people just left, and that generation. I know my parents were World War II generation. It's like, we don't do that. We just
keep it push. Yeah, keep moving on. Yep.
Right. You don't sit and labor over it. And so with Georgianne, it was interesting because with her parents, I think she had some siblings, but there was no service for her at the school. There was no candle. There was no, it was just, the saddest part was her boyfriend sitting on the steps of her sorority and wouldn't leave for days, and cops all over the place. Yeah.
Because
and
I'm sure he felt guilty, right? Like,
oh, he was yeah. I kind of followed him. I knew of him. I knew the guy that she talked to before, as she was leaving. I knew him quite well. My husband did too. But as far as her boyfriend goes, I think he's had some challenges in his life. I've kind of seen that online, and
that's sad.
it's obviously. I mean, how can you
He's
not?
traumatized. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
But
that
I
breaks
have
my
to
heart.
say
Because it's
that
not his fault, but he is gonna live with that and think if I only had done, or what if, or so
yeah,
hard. I
that's
feel
true.
awful for him. That's horrible.
Yeah.
And I'm
And her
sorry
parents
about your
as
brother
well.
too. That's
Oh yeah. Sorry.
no, and
Sorry.
her parents. Like
I cut you off.
I saw the article. I read an article about her parents, and they had just put her stuff
I know.
to the side and hadn't touched it for 30 years.
I
So
saw
sad.
that. Is that the saddest? I thought
Very
that was
sad.
almost, my heart just broke. Her mom was just like, we don't want to talk about it. We don't want to hear about it.
Yeah.
We don't want to know I don't, sadly, I don't think that was unusual for people
At that
in
time, yeah.
that realm. Yeah. But given that, there was a lot of repercussions because nobody had an avenue. And for some, it was, expelling your energy negatively. For others, it was, what can we do for, make sure. Now, I know when we went back to college, we had, a lot more. When I said earlier that there weren't any police officers or anything up at the U district, I mean, it was just like it was a free for all. I mean, there was streaking and drugs and you couldn't believe what was going. It was Sin City. It was 1974, and then the cops started. All of a sudden, the police started hanging around, which wasn't very well received by a lot of people. But that's how life changed.
Yeah.
And then the sororities, we were we had a house mother, and we couldn't have boys in the house other than the main four. I mean, it was pretty locked down environment, and it stayed that way all while I was in college, all the 4 years.
So did you feel safe going back the next year?
Well, I as a 19-year-old, there was no way I was not going back. I mean, I would say that we were typical kids, like, oh yeah, we'll be careful. But I'm not going to agree that I was any safer. I mean, I told myself I can handle it. I won't talk, they were all, don't talk to people, don't go, blah, 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 I mean, we were all given the song and dance, but I know that I would run across, I'd go out late at night, or we'd go get food, or we'd, head out and do something stupid. We were stupid
you
kids.
were kids, yeah.
I even hitchhiked. I mean, my girlfriend and I hitchhiked. And so, we hitchhiked just because our car broke down, and we just thought, we'll just hitchhike. And some weirdo picked us up, and he was like a really icky person, but he did drop us back off in the U district, and we were, we looked at each other. We thought, oh my God, we were so stupid, but we thought we were smarter than. It's what all kids think. I mean, why?
Yeah, you kids are resilient. Yeah,
invincible.
Yeah,
invincible.
Nobody's gonna hurt us.
Yeah.
Gosh. Well, I want to play this audio for a second. Thank you, Lauren, for the super chat. I'm going to play this audio, so if you guys want to listen, you're not going to be able to hear it through the Zoom. You're going to have to mute the Zoom and then watch it on whatever you're watching YouTube on, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So just mute your Zoom and then watch or listen to the audio on your you know what I'm saying. You understand, right? You get it, Shanna? Banana?
I got it.
Yeah.
I can mute you guys for you, so you don't have to worry about it. I'll mute you guys.
Thank you.
It's gonna start. Give me give me a second. It's buffering.
Bear the awesome consequences of what you were about to do. I bear none of the guilt. I bear none of the responsibility. Wait a minute. That's it. Go on. He's going to go for holding so the court can answer.
Can't remember what night of the week it was. Thursday, I believe. I don't know. 11 to 12, probably closer to 12, on a warm Seattle May night. I mean, I think it was clear. Weather had been fairly good. I was moving up the alley using a briefcase and some crutches, and a young woman walked down. I saw her round the north end of the block into the alley and stop for a moment and then keep on walking down the alley toward me. And about halfway down the block, I encountered her and asked her to help me carry the briefcase, which she did, and we walked back up the alley. Across the street, turned right on the sidewalk, and found, I think, the fraternity house on the corner there. Midway in the block used to be a parking lot there, dirt, surface, no lights. And my car reached the corner. What happened was I knocked her unconscious with the crowbar. By the car. Outside and back of the car. Did you see it? No. And then there was some handcuffs there along with the crowbar. And they handcuffed her and put her in the passenger side of the car and drove away. Was she alive or dead? No, she was quite not that she was unconscious because she was very much alive. Went to the freeway. It's a long time. Anyway, the freeway. She was conscious at this time, and she regained consciousness at this time, basically. Well, there's a lot of incidental things that I'm just not talking about that because they're just incidental anyway. Well, barricade, no. Not then, it wasn't. Yeah, you could, like I told you could turn, at that time, you could make a left-hand turn, illegal as it may have been because of the double yellow line. And that was talk about craziness. If they're going to take a toll, they'd probably arrested me. But, nevertheless, at that time, there was no divider running down the middle of that road at that point. I know, you're right, it would have been pretty damn hard to do it at once. But all you had to do was just make an illegal left-hand turn all the way across, the two westbound lanes of 90. Well, Park took out the van and took the handcuffs off of it. I took her out of the van and took the handcuffs off her. Took her out of the car. When you got her what? Volkswagen. Just it? Well, I'm sorry if it wasn't a... Oh, okay. Well, it wasn't. It was a Volkswagen, and took out the car. I think I should have took the handcuffs off. Yeah, that sounded like that. Anyway, gee, this is probably the hardest part. I don't know. I was talking sort of abstractly before, but well, we're getting right down to it, and I will talk about it. It's just I hope you understand it's not something that I find easy to talk about after all this time. One of the things that makes it, among the things that makes it difficult is that at this point she was quite lucid, talking about things, about some. It's funny. It's funny, but it's odd the kind of things people say in those circumstances. And she said that she thought that she had a Spanish test the next day, and she thought that I had taken her to help tutor me for a Spanish test. Odd thing to say. Long and short of it was that I knocked her unconscious and strangled her and drove her into about 10 yards into a small grove of trees that was there. Cord. An old piece of rope. Yeah. Something's in the car. The car up. By this time it was almost dawn. It's just about dawn. Sun was coming up. And I went through my usual routine. I went through this routine where I was just absolutely just shocked and scared to death, shocked, horrified. And I went down the road throwing everything that I had, the briefcase, out the window, throwing the briefcase, the clutches, the rope, the clothes, just tossing out the window. I was in a sheer state of panic, of just absolute horror, it's like at that point in time, consciousness of what has really happened is like you break out of a fever or something. That is. And so I drove north on 90, northeast on 90, at some point throwing articles out the window as I went, articles of clothing, shoes, etc. What? What? Well, after we got out of the car, initially. Okay. I skipped over some stuff there, and we'll have to get back to it sometime, but it's just too hard for me to talk about right now. So, you didn't know what clothes you were wearing? Yep. A pair of white patent leather clogs, blue slacks, some kind of halter top of which she had a shirt tied in a knot. Okay, and where were these deposited? Along the roadside? I mean, well, not right on 90, went east to the infamous Taylor Mountain Road. What highway is that? 18. Turn right, went south again. And at some point, south of Taylor Mountain, a lot of that stuff went out of the car. Down embankments and what have you. Yeah. Well, yeah, I was stopped, pulled on the side of the road, and this time it was pretty light. And just tossed it. But you see, I mean, But sometimes I would do that, and sometimes I wouldn't. At this point in time, I was so frantic, so panicked, so whatever about what had happened that I just had to get every reminder of that incident out of the car, quick as possible. Didn't want to take it home, didn't want to be around. I was just... You feel away from your own stuff? Oh, sure, yeah. I feel away the briefcase and the crutches and all that stuff. Yeah. And the crowbar, everything. Handcuffs, everything. I get mad at myself. 2 weeks later, that I'd have to go out and buy another pair. I mean, it's not comical, but that's what would happen. I just had a while to think about Ted Hawkins. Is there something you can tell me about her that probably only you know and we know? Well, I think the parents said pretty darn good, yeah. That's what she said. When she was hallucinating, she said everybody called her George. What? That's what she said. Or how about that? She used a safety pin because apparently her those slats were a bit too big. Well, that's about all I know. I mean, yeah, I suppose there's I'm sure there are bits and pieces will come back to me, but there wasn't a lot. Obviously there wasn't a lot of conversation, but that's what comes to mind. Talk about details coming there. I couldn't find one of the shoes, so I thought it was there, but it wasn't. So I went back. This is the next day. Got on my bicycle, rode back to that little parking lot. I knew there were police all over the place by that time, but I was kind of nervous because I'll tell you why in a minute. Because I'd left and my car had been parked there, so I'd never seen it. There's something sound there that might connect me. So I went back to the parking lot and I found both the pierced earrings and the shoe laying in the parking lot at about 5 in the afternoon. You know, I was so nervous about anything like that being found in that parking lot was that no more than 2 weeks before that I had been using the same modus operandi in the same neighborhood in front now of the same sorority house. George Ann Hawkins disappeared from. I encountered a girl going out the door and asked her to help me. Walked her all the way to that lot. 11 o'clock on a Friday night. And I was drunk. I was drunk and I was just dabbling on, and I told her I worked in Olympia, that I lived in a rooming house. I mean, I was just, I was horrified later on. But, yes, more or less, but yes. That was basically part of the MO at that time, yeah. But I reached, got all the way to the car. It's happened, what happens sometimes, and just said, no, I don't want to do it. I said, thank you, see you later, and she walked away. But after the Hawkins thing, I was, just paranoid as hell that this girl would say, something weird happened to me a couple weeks ago. This guy came along with crutches and asked me to help him. He took me to a Volkswagen, said he worked up in Olympia and lived here in the University District. How many people could that apply to? So, there you are. Okay, how about getting back to going back to that? Again? Getting back to going back to that scene. Okay. Well, I went back the next day. I went back about 3 days later to do that business that we talked about earlier and went up the roadway with it. It was sort of a crude attempt to disguise the identity or avoid the identification of the remains. And then maybe about a week to 2 weeks later, I went back for a third time. Yeah. Again, just to see what's going on. There's a lot of psychological stuff going on here that we just don't have time for. I mean, we just have days explaining. There is an aspect here of the possessiveness Bill talked about, and I'm sure you're familiar with, but, the after effects. This is why I'm so keen on the taking out of crime scenes of this type afterwards. Fascination with that, necrophilia, all that. But of course, after, in June, after a week, it's, what with all the local the wildlife, but there's not much left. Were you going back to that scene? Well, I don't want to talk about that right now. We will talk about it someday, but I don't really have enough to give you the background on it. I want us to work into that. Okay. All right, now, did you actually put carry this little with you? Oh, it was in the toolkit. I had a metal toolkit in front of the trunk, such as it is in the Volkswagen. And it had everything in there. All the tools you need to repair a Volkswagen. Just like any toolkit, metric stuff. And then there was a pencil. And also a little shovel, a little army shovel. Do you have a bearing in the back? Oh, yes. Yeah. I mean, in my, you might say, my more coherent, not coherent. That's when I was really going all out to, and took my time. Yeah, I did. This would have been early 84, actually 74. She was up in the mountains, up in the Cascades. This was something that happened piece by piece, as strange as this may sound. I'm trying to remember exactly where it all happened.
All right, guys. There you go. That is so disturbing. Like, so freaking disturbing. Can you guys hear me? Oh, we have to unmute. I'll unmute you guys. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, that was really disturbing. But
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. But I
Really
think,
good job on that.
Oh, thanks.
Man, I couldn't.
Yeah, it's disgusting.
Get my blood pressure up.
Oh, I bet just hearing that, and I can't imagine
I've heard it a lot. I've heard him a lot, but it never gets old. I mean, it gets old, but it doesn't get old. I don't know.
It doesn't get any less chilling.
Yeah. It almost sounds like he's bragging.
Such a jerk. He's such a jerk. He's just like this asshole guy who you just want to just slap him and say, you're not that cool,
Right.
Quit trying to impress us with your, of course, and the Volkswagen doesn't have that as a Volkswagen has as many tools. I mean, who cares? He's such a product of insecurity and not living up to some, ideal of who he thinks he should be, who he wants people to think he is, and he's not.
Yeah.
I hate him.
So I guess for people that are just joining, we are talking to Teresa, who was a college friend of Georgianne Hawkins, one of Ted Bundy's victims. And it's the University of Washington, correct?
Yeah.
And their sorority houses were right next to one another, like a stone's throw away from one another, which is just crazy to me. Just crazy. Do you still go back to that area? Do you live in that area?
Oh, yeah. We live outside of Seattle. Both my children went to the University of Washington.
Wow.
My son lived next door, the frat next door to Georgianne's.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
And what's interesting is that none of that area really has changed. It looks exactly the same. There's nothing
nuts.
other than some painting on the outside. The whole area looks just the same. My daughter was in a sorority a couple of blocks away from there, but we are alumni. We go to football games. We're very involved in the college, the University of Washington football stadium, all that. We don't go up to the Greek Row that much, but when we do, I mean, it's like, okay, here's where this happened. And yeah, it's it's so much time has passed. I'm not sure if people out in the world, other than Ted Bundy being such a compelling figure, but it just seems like, maybe this is, I guess it's still important, but
it is. Do you find that people in that area still talk about it? Do the kids there like realize what happened back in the 70s there? And
well, as a matter of fact, I ended up becoming a teacher, and I taught junior high for 30 plus years. And now and then, something would come up and I would bring up, in a discussion something, and the kids knew about Ted Bundy. I mean, I'm not sure of their parents, but it is known now. Whether that, I would say as a rule, no, other than these anniversaries come up and, it's much like anything, life goes on. I wouldn't know if the girls in the sororities today, if they even think about, like, if there's any, like I said, there was no formal service or anything for Georgianne, because at the time, nobody even knew where Georgianne was. To this day, if you look her up, she's still regarded as a missing person because they never got dental records from her.
Oh, I saw that.
They found bones and they do attribute them to her, but they're like femur and, but her head was never found. So they can't officially declare her dead. But, he obviously did this, but, so anyway, it just, there isn't any sort of memorial or anything other than those of us that walked that path. And because we were both fresh, we were both the same exact age, and all of us, it was just part of our lives for the time that I lived there. And I ended up living in that area for several years post, and now we live outside of that area. But yeah, we do go there, and I'll never, ever, ever stop and not think about that whenever I'm in that area. Like, oh my God, this is where Georgianne was, and this is, it's just, and and in the Netflix, they show the actual, like the day after she disappeared, they have a news camera there. It looks exactly the same today. I looked at it today. Yeah, it's like, okay, there's nothing. I was thinking, well, maybe I should go take a picture, but they have a picture of it online. It looks exactly the same. There isn't anything different.
That is crazy.
It's crazy to think that was 30 years ago that he was executed. Like, we're coming up on like 30 years. Wow.
I know, right?
I know. Well, it was 45 years ago that she disappeared. I mean, that's lifetime. Yeah. I mean, that's.
Now, is her mom still living? Like, I know her dad passed in 2003. Is her mom still alive?
If she is, she's going to be. She was pretty old when that article came out. I think that
she was in her 90s.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, close to 100.
Wow. Okay.
I'm up there. So,
did she have siblings?
I think she did. I think she was the youngest of her siblings. I think she had don't quote me on this, but like I said, there wasn't a lot of fanfare. When like Lacey Peterson died, I mean, all the family and all the attention on that, and poor little Georgianne, and like these girls would disappear, and it would just be like, it would be in the paper and it would be on the news, but I don't think people knew what to do with any of this. They just didn't understand.
Right.
Nor did they understand the effect that anything like this has on people. I don't care what age you are, and I know that, people, just sticks with you.
Yeah.
I bet. Does anybody in chat have any questions for Teresa that we can ask?
Teresa, thank you again for joining Jay and me, because you spent a lot of time, and we really appreciate you giving us all this information. I mean,
For sure.
It's very interesting.
Yes, my pleasure.
Yeah, I'm sure back then, and people that generation didn't talk about, feelings and stuff like we do now.
No,
it's true.
Mm-hmm. No,
I was the
like,
youngest.
okay,
I'm the youngest of a family of 6. So my brother is actually 60 years old. And, so my parents are that same generation, I was born in 73, but, everyone was, all my siblings were so much older than me, that I know my parents were probably like those parents back then. And you didn't talk about stuff. It was like, it happened and you just kind of keep it moving and keep your life going. You don't sit and dwell on it. And,
right.
But that is so scary.
I was in the middle of 8 children, and it was. I remember it just wasn't talked about. I mean, you had a problem, and you just didn't sit down and hash it out and come up with 5 different ways to figure out an answer. It was like, deal with it. My parents were worried, about, of course, all the, just as parents, but, on the other hand, maybe because we had 8 children and, there was a lot of stuff going on. And for them, my youngest sister was only like 7 years old. So, I mean, they were like, okay, she's in college, go do your thing.
Yeah.
And,
we did our job. She's off to school. We've got these ones at home. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So Susan in chat has a question.
Yeah,
did it affect the way Teresa raised her kids or fears for her children?
I would say that probably because my kids were growing up right at the time where phones became readily available. And I had my daughter, I mean, she's 35 now, but at the time when she was in college, I mean, it was like, call me when you get there, send me a message. I had to give her, like, there's always that cutting of the cord, but I mean, I think for my children is that they knew I was affected by this, and so they were probably extra conscientious to me about that kind of stuff.
Aww.
to the degree that they could be. My son probably a little less so, but definitely my daughter.
Yeah,
she knew it. But overall, I think for me, what ended up happening for me is I ended up becoming a teacher, and I just really put my energies into wanting to, I don't know, if there's some sort of spiritual thing that happened at that time in my life. It's like, I am going to do something here for whatever I'm feeling inside about mankind, and I ended up in junior high, which is a really tough age, but I really, it was my calling. I really enjoyed, and it was, never a dull moment, but, there's a lot of that fortitude that came with me as I moved forward in my life.
You're very inspiring. Very inspirational.
I mean, that's very sweet, and definitely know that Georgianne would have done great things in this world. She had a chance. Sadly, she didn't. But
so Speller has a question. Where do they think he did everything? His boarding house? And I don't know what they mean by everything. Like maybe.
I think he was living in a boarding house that was like 5 blocks from the UW. I don't think he was like 24/7 Ted Bundy serial killer. Nobody even knew what a serial killer was back then. I think he was serial killer, very tiny part of his life. the rest of the time he was schmoozing and, doing politics. He was Mr., for suicide prevention. He was like hanging out with, he was, people, it was interesting because people that knew him everybody stood by him. I mean, even in Utah, like the group of people, when he was in law school, all the people that knew him in school, he couldn't have done this. And they put together a fund.
And he became a member of the Mormon church.
Right.
Which is crazy.
It is crazy.
But it's like he set it all up, right? He set it all up so these people would defend him, and
the perfect ruse.
There's something to be said about having a part of your personality that he took, that entity, whatever you want to call it, and then he could shut it down and be this other person. And, that's what you worry and you wonder about with all these other cases, and Chris Watson, Scott Peterson, and, numerous various other people. Do they have this little tiny sliver of horribleness that they tap into, and they can just then shut it down, and I can just be this regular guy, and, Ted Bundy, obviously to the nth degree, but, it's obvious there's something about being able to come in, tap into it and come out. I don't know. I mean, it's all psychopathy.
And the lack of remorse, like just being able to talk about it, like it's, you're just talking about a football game last night. Like, it's crazy to me.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if you guys watched I think they have it online of him interviewing the the Tallahassee police officer who was at the scene of the Chi Omega murders, and Ted was representing himself.
Oh, yes, I saw that. Yes.
Yeah. And he's like asking the cop, describe the scene.
Mm-hmm.
And he wants the cop to just go into detail about how these girls were found. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is what's so sick about him. And the cop is just obviously uncomfortable. Like, why would you ever present to the jury what was what was seen? And I also found it very interesting that they showed the jury in the television broadcast of that trial, which was the very first trial they ever broadcast, and they had the camera on the jury.
Right. Like close-ups too, like zooming in.
There's that one lady that's asleep, like the closing argument. They're snoring away, and people are commenting like, wouldn't you think that maybe she might want to be awake for hearing the closing argument? It's just so bizarre. I'm thinking, how did I live in that time frame? And it seems normal. And then those girls that were in the audience, like, oh, I think he's so hot.
There's no way he did this. Mm-hmm. And didn't he father a child? Doesn't he have a daughter?
He does have a daughter. Yes, he does.
What's the story with that? How? Did he get conjugal visits?
I think that from what I read, all my stupid research, that he talked his way into letting, he wasn't supposed to, but, he's Mr. Nice Guy, and the guards kind of turned the other way and let that girl in, that Carol Boone girl.
Mm-hmm.
And he named this daughter Rosebud, and that's the name that he told Carol Durant, the girl in Utah, who said, I'm Officer Rosebud, and you need to come with me to the police station to help us, identify or talk about your car getting broken into. And so then he turns around and names his daughter that.
So twisted. It's almost like he gets off on like the after the fact, like anything that he can like look back and remember the actual horrible acts that he did. I mean, revisiting the scene, asking the cop, well, how did they look when you found him? And then naming his daughter Rosebud, really? Like, it's like, I don't understand, can't wrap my brain around that.
I don't either. It's just so weird. I just look at that picture of Georgette, and she's so cute there.
She
oh my
is
God,
beautiful.
I know. I loved that
that
picture. I chose that one out of all the ones I found. I liked that one.
Well, the
So
one
beautiful.
the one they usually show is the one, I think that was probably your high school graduation. That's her sorority pledge night, and that's what she looked like. Yeah, so cute.
Very pretty.
Yeah.
So I want to go back to that because I had a couple questions about that night, and I had a question too. Thank you, KT. Did you ever see his Volkswagen around, or was that? I mean, a lot of people had Volkswagens then. It was a pretty popular car. But do you recall?
I drove a Volkswagen.
You
How
did?
scary is that? Yeah, I had a Volkswagen. I'm like, oh my God, this is haunting.
There was a lot of them on the road then, you know?
Oh my God, it was like slug bug, no return. We used
Yeah.
to, we did that growing up. There were thousands of them, but they were cheap and easy to maintain. And yeah, I think it was just a dime a dozen. No, I don't have any. I remember I bought mine because it was inexpensive. I think I paid like $700 for it, and it got me. I was student teaching, and yeah, they were everywhere.
My sister had one in high school too, and she graduated in 79, and she had an orange one. I remember her orange one.
Yeah, mine was turquoise blue. I loved it.
Oh, don't you wish you could have it
Sounds
now?
cute.
Love those cars.
Yeah, I still look for it because it was the cutest car. I love that car.
Creepy. And then what was the other question? I had another question while we were running through that. So nobody else at that time, this is my question. So when she was walking back, right, and she was with the guy friend, and and she said, I'm good or whatever, and he just watched her out the window. No one else was coming and going in that alleyway at that time or at that night?
No, apparently not. Nobody else was down. No, and that doesn't surprise me at all because the main drag was in front of the sororities, and this was in the back of the, like, I don't know if you've looked online, but it's just an alley. And so it was 1 a.m, and no, there wasn't anybody else walking. Now, my recollection of that time is that we would use that as a means of getting back and forth to get to where we were going, but it wasn't our main. We were mostly in the front where the main road was. So
God, and how scary. He must have been stalking back there.
Actually watched him, not knowing, it was Ted Bundy, not knowing anything. And prior to Georgianne, that same night, she said he reported that he saw this guy in crutches and a girl walking to his car. And the car where he parked was kind of kitty corner to the fraternity. It was on the other side. So he actually had to go north. She was heading south. He was heading north. So she turned and 180 and walked back away from her sorority. This guy saw him earlier in the night walking with a girl, and she walked with him, dropped off his briefcase, and he didn't take her. So then she went on her way, and then he didn't think anything of it at the time, and then he went into his frat, and then she went on her way, and then Ted came back out and went back down to the alley, waiting for George, waiting for somebody.
What is the address of that sorority house? Do you know? I want to pull it up. I want to see a picture.
I'll get it right now.
Is it a brick house?
It's Kappa Alpha Theta is the name of it. University of Washington.
What road is it on?
And it's on 17th Avenue. And it's now that was, he had said in his testimony that he had gone and stood in front of the sorority and actually had approached another girl. So I don't know if that was what he was talking about.
Yeah, because he said he couldn't do it. Like he got
Yeah,
the last
so-
minute and he was like, I can't do it. Crazy.
So
Yeah.
this guy, yeah. So it looks, if you look online, it looks exactly like that. And that's what it looked like when I was in
I
college.
can't find it.
Kappa, it's a Kappa Alpha, Kappa Alpha Theta Sorority, Seattle.
Does it have pillars in the front?
It has white pillars and stairs and a brick.
White pillars in the front, and then the it's kind of, and then behind it is the brick house. Is that what it looks like?
Okay, are you looking at the front of the sorority or you're looking at the alley?
I'm looking at the front.
Yeah, the front, it just says at the top, it says, so make sure you have University of Washington, not Washington State, University of Washington. The Alpha Lambda chapter, Seattle, Kappa Alpha Theta sorority house.
I'm just surprised I can't find it. Like,
yeah, that is weird. And it has the name, the Greek letters Kappa Alpha Theta.
Oh, I think I might have found the alley.
Mm-hmm.
Was there a catwalk?
Yes. Now that is the frat next to our sorority.
Okay, I'm going to pull this picture up and show you.
Where all the cops were. Right. That's where my house was. So my house was, if you're looking at the front of her house, my house was to the right of that. And then right next to ours was a frat. That, not her boyfriend's frat, but a different frat. And they had a catwalk.
Oh shit. Okay,
and
I found them. All right,
yeah,
I'm going to pull them up, and I want you to tell me what these are as I pull them up, because there's a couple.
Okay.
This is interesting. I've never looked into this. It's deep. Okay. Let's see. All right, so here's the catwalk one.
Yeah.
Can you see that?
Yeah. So that is actually tell you the truth, that is where the police concentrated a lot of their look, because they believe that that's what he was walking up from, that Theta, that's the Theta Chi fraternity, and that's where she was. Her house is like 2 doors down from that. And I'm talking really so right where you see that dumpster.
Uh-huh.
So, and then you see the white, that's my sorority, and then right next to that would be hers. And they believe she was walking straight up by where that dumpster was, or she was heading down.
The blue dumpster?
Correct.
Okay.
And he was coming towards us. She was heading south. So looking at that picture, that would be heading south, and he was coming up. The fraternity where her boyfriend was is that on the left, where you see those windows right there.
Okay, like the beigey house.
Correct. Yeah, and then there's a white kind of correct. There's a beigey house, and then a flat, then a electric pole, and then there's a
white.
A white, that's a sorority, and then there's a brick house, that's a frat, and then next to that's my house, and then next to that is her house. So, and they're all back door entrance. So
yeah, I have a picture of the back door here. I'm going to show you.
To the back. Yeah, but that's a little deceiving because it looks far away, but it isn't far away. I mean, you can see what that looks like, the red car, and then it looks like there's a SUV. I mean, you can see the size. That isn't the SUV still looks big.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I have this gate pulled up, and it says back door to sorority. Is that accurate?
I saw that picture, and I'm not sure about that. She never made it to her house. That's the thing. They knew that she never made it back to the Theta house. She only got barely away from she never made it there. That's just the parking. And where you see that brick and the white, that's our sorority. That's how close we were. And
Wow.
that's just some parking. And she never made it there.
Wow.
And those bars on that window, I think those were added post Georgianne.
Oh my God.
Yeah. That's our house.
That is so
See
I
how
said that
close.
they were very close together. That's how close you are. I mean, you reach kind of, a lot of times they refer to them as dorms and stuff. They weren't. They were houses. Each sorority had about 100 girls living in it, and it's a big sorority. It's a big college, and it was a pretty big. The Greek system was pretty popular in those days, and they probably still are. And it was sort of just getting out of the realm of anti-war and all that. Vietnam War was over, and it was kind of like getting back to like regular college life, and burning up the bra and all that stuff was done. People just wanted to go back to being regular college kids and not protest. We weren't protesting. We were just college kids. We wanted to do college things, go to parties and go to college and streak and dance. And we never had a protest or anything. We didn't believe in that. Who cares? We just want to give us a beer. It was I think, and that's what Georgianne was all about. She was just a party girl. She was a fun girl.
Yeah, I heard she had a magnetic personality. Like they called her the Pied Piper. How everyone just kind of gravitated to her.
She's just sort of, I know it sounds kind of weird, but she just kind of was like a Lacey Peterson. Like I knew Lacey, but people that described how vivacious she was, and that's what Georgianne was just darling. Like she'd be out throwing frisbees and cutest little figure, just darling little girl. Cute, wild. I mean, she has kind of a little wild side to her. I've never turned. We'll just put it that way.
Yeah. But a straight A student. She was smart.
Right. She kept it together.
When she went to school, she did school. And when school was over, she enjoyed college. She was a great girl. I mean, that was pretty much the way life was in those days.
It's just so It's just so intriguing in such a weird way. I know that everybody who follows true crime kind of understands what I mean. Is you find it so intriguing, but it is so real. And I think it really gives us a real perspective when we talk to somebody who is close to one of these situations, because to us,
it really humanizes it.
Yeah, it's not just a TV show.
It's like, that was so long ago. People were different back then. That's different. And oh gosh, and especially the news clips and stuff. I'm like, God, that looks like ancient history. But life, we're not that different. We're just older, but as you will know, and as everybody goes through the different stages of life, we are the same people that we were when we were 8 years old. I mean, that sadly, I realized that when I was teaching, that I'd look some kid up like, oh my God, this kid is driving me nuts. What's going on? I'd look back at his full files and like, oh yeah, this happened in preschool. We are that same person. And so, as you look at 1974 to 2019, things change, but they all stay the same.
Yeah.
And why the things we go through and the attachments we have to people and what we make of those attachments is so important in our lives and moving forward, and just appreciate the people around you, but never be too careful. You just can't throw all caution to the wind because somebody seems like they're a nice person.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, a lot of us now we are more paranoid. We're more on guard when it comes to, strangers and helping people. I think that's why people don't help people anymore, is because it's too scary. You just don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know what they're capable of.
That's an interesting thing that you said. That's a very interesting thing, because I know that maybe to a fault, I tend to engage with people that, I'm standing in line or, and as a rule, I would say most people are, at least where I live in the Seattle area, people are pretty closed. They're not willing to just make eye contact and have a conversation. And so I don't know if that's due to
being
times we live in.
just being gun shy, and I don't know that, and people are more, involved in their phones and their social media and everything else that's going on, all of our electronics. Back then, I wish we could go back to that time when we
Me
didn't
too.
have that we weren't constantly connected, And I think that we had more fun. And I think what you speak about, how you guys were just carefree kids, just having, partying and having fun. I mean, honestly, you weren't sitting there on your phones. You guys were having fun. It was innocent. It was innocent times.
We had 100 girls living in that sorority, and we only had 3 phones. 3
God.
phones, and one poor sad sack was in charge of, like, we had duties where you had to be on phone duty, and it was like the worst duty ever. And you had to sit there and take, like, there were 3 lines, and you had to take in incoming calls like a secretary and sit at this phone from like 8 until midnight. And they made the freshmen do that job. And after midnight, whatever phone was ringing, somebody happened to pick it up. But most of the time, nobody answered the phone unless somebody was on phone duty. And that's our life. We did not live by anything other than, I'll catch up to you at such and such a place. Or, it's hard for me to even think how we functioned, but we did.
Yes.
It's different than the people
figured it out.
40 years from now.
Yep, figured it out.
That'll say how to do it now.
I just actually came across a Seattle police bulletin of her missing, and I want to read this real quick. Can you guys see it up on the screen? It's pretty blurry, but it says missing person, Hawkins Georgianne, white female. This is 19. Date of birth 8/20/55, 5'2", 120 pounds, shoulder length brown hair, brown eyes, moles on back of neck. And what I found interesting, her outfit. Last seen wearing white backless tee-shirt, red, white, and blue flower print, sheer, long-sleeved shirt, navy blue cotton bell-bottom pants, white open-toed wedge sandals, wearing rectangle black onyx ring with small diamonds set in light gold, triangle setting in center, onyx something framed by yellow gold, or on middle finger, left hand. God, they really had a good description. Yeah. Also wearing a single cultured pearl set in a low Tiffany setting with a slender gold band worn on third finger of right hand. Georgianne Hawkins, 19 years old, disappeared from an alley behind the 4500 block, 17th Avenue, Greek Road, just off the campus of the University of Washington. I can't read the hours. 1 o'clock in the morning, I guess, on June 11th, around 1 o'clock. A reward of $5,000 for information leading to her safe return has been posted by her parents. Any information regarding Georgianne should be directed to blah, 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 blah. So $5,000 was a lot then.
Yeah.
That was a good reward.
But who would have seen that? I mean, I don't remember seeing that. They didn't have any, I don't even know.
Right. Where was this posted, right?
Yeah. Where was it posted? Like in the post office? I mean, I don't remember. I remember the media was out there and the cops were out there, but it's not people, it's interesting because people just like, oh, she's missing. Okay. And I got a class to go to, I mean, there were people that just, whatever. I mean, to this day, that's just the way some people react to things, like, oh, this happened. Oh, well, I've got to go to the grocery store. I mean, it does that way, but, I don't know where that's interesting.
Right.
I've looked online. I mean, long before any of this happened, like just over the years, I've looked to see, if there's any old Seattle Times papers and stuff like that. And I've never really found a lot of articles. Maybe it just isn't accessible anymore. Maybe I'd have to go.
You'd have to go to the library or something and look at.
I haven't done that.
Yeah,
I'm too lazy. I think if it's not online and it's no good. If I can't get it online, I'm not.
I hear you. They need to make those things accessible online, damn it.
Costco. If I can't get it at Costco, then it doesn't need to be purchased.
Yeah, so it's kind of neat to bring up these old documents, but like you said, it's not like these were posted on telephone poles everywhere, right? They didn't do that then.
I don't remember that being the case. I liked her outfit though. It's interesting because
like I want the outfit,
Yeah.
It's all that style is that. And you watch the Netflix, I got, oh God, that is so my outfit. I totally wore that. And she, all those girls had that look, that same long dark hair,
parted in the middle. Yeah.
That was because the girlfriend that jilted him looked like that. And she basically was out of his league. She came from San Francisco and dumped him, and he just couldn't get over that. And his revenge was to get it back at all these girls that looked like that. And
how dare you shun Ted Bundy, right?
Yeah. So she was, I remember that spring quarter, she, back in, I'm paying the price now, but I don't know about you girls, but all we wanted to do in all of our life, the only thing we really, really cared about was being tan. We had, so I don't care. In Seattle, smidgen of sunshine. We had these sun porches.
Oh, you know what? That's what it says in the description. It says brown hair, brown eyes, well suntanned.
Oh, yeah. Totally.
I didn't know what that said, but now I see it.
Well, it was a competition. I mean, we would take album covers and cover them in foil and lay in the sun and reflect off the sun and lay down on tin foil
with baby oil.
Wow.
It was a race to see, and here it was, people think of Seattle as nothing but rain, but the few days that we would get sun or it would be nice, we'd be out and soaking up the sun. And so she was really tan. I remember seeing her like a couple of days before she disappeared, and there was this big function out in front of all the frats and sororities and music playing and just this fun atmosphere. And Georgianne was tossing a frisbee, and she's wearing this little halter top and short shorts, and she's so cute. Look at her. I mean, we're all so jealous because she's so cute.
Gosh. So, and you can remember that like it's yesterday.
Oh, totally. Well, it was a topic of discussion because we were the sorority next door, and we were, it was like, oh my God, look at them. Look at those girls. They're out there showing off their tans, and it was just the way we were. That's what kids do.
Yeah.
So
Rose asked if they ever recovered her belongings, and I don't think they did.
No, I think he took all her stuff and he got rid of it, so there was no remnants left.
Mm-hmm.
God.
And I don't know what happened to her stuff at the house. I mean, again, those are kind of things that people just didn't talk about back then.
Yeah.
Like I saying, well, who's going to clean her room out? And they like, don't ask about that.
Oh yeah, you don't talk about that. That's not happening. You just act like it's not happening. Another question is, where was her family from? Were they local?
They were in the, I believe they came from like south of Seattle. I want to say, not immediately Seattle. So an hour or so away.
I think it's like Tacoma. Was it Tacoma?
Tacoma area. Yeah. She came from the Tacoma area. So did Ted Bundy, but he was older than us by 10 years older than us. So he would have been, we were 19, he would have been 29, 28, 30 years old.
Well,
ick.
Yes, it is icky. Very icky. Is there any other questions in the chat before we let you go? We've kept you for a while now.
Okay. It's all right. Nothing that I
know. I asked Teresa, I'm like, how much time do you have? I'm like, it's like, I don't have anything to do. I'm like, uh-oh, that could
Yeah.
get dangerous on my channel, because sometimes we end up on here for 4 hours.
Yeah.
We have.
I'm good. I'm absolutely fine. I
Yeah.
don't have anything going on. It's Pacific time for me, so it's early.
Right. You still have, your night is still young.
Yes, it's very young.
Amy just had one. Did you ever converse with her, or was it someone like just an acquaintance?
Yeah, I think we did. We all shortly before she disappeared, we became, I know it sounds so silly now that I think about it, but we became like little sisters of a fraternity across the road, and we were all part of all that. Yeah, we talked, chatted, and much like you would with any sort of, I'm not going to say we were best buddies because that wouldn't be true, but we were in a social setting and lots of mutual friends. It's a small, it's a big college, but a small environment when you put them all together. So no different than working in an office with a lot of people, and you don't necessarily hang out with everybody,
Right.
but you definitely
You're familiar with them.
Right.
That's what that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And in a Greek system, you have so many activities together, and we lived. You just came and went, and every day coming and going, and activities going on 24/7. So it was totally, when she disappeared, I mean, all of us, it was like one big family. Like, oh my God, another one, Georgianne, and it was just horrible because it wasn't like, who's that? I mean, we all immediately came out in force.
So, Warrior Grandma says, sorority mom didn't do a head count, or was there a sign-in book?
Oh, God, they were worthless. Bunch of old ladies. We never knew what their role was. They were getting free room and board.
Right.
And
like, why are they even here?
And now and then come out and like rat you out if you had like a date or something. Like, you need to go. We need to leave. No, they were worthless.
How old were they?
Well, ours was, I should say, old. She's probably younger than I am now, but she seemed like she was 100 years old and mean.
Yeah, when you're that age.
She wasn't my favorite. She was like me, and I didn't like her. And the Theta one, she was actually on the Netflix. She just seemed like she was kind of, they were just kind of paid free room and board. I don't know. I always wondered, how did they get this gig? What put in that? Because they definitely didn't. I mean, we had rules as a freshman, and I know that Georgianne had the same rules I did. We were not allowed, unless you paid the big bucks for the all-night key, you had to be in by 11.
Mm-hmm.
And if you paid down like $150 for a key that opened the door past 11, then you could come and go. And the main rule was you couldn't have boys upstairs. And that was basically it. And I'm sure every one of those rules was broken. But, with the key, that was the thing that was frightening to me, is that we didn't put the money out for the key. We just put the rock in the door.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Which is so bad. And that's what kids do. Oh, it's fine. Who cares?
Thank God that he didn't know that, because this could have went a totally different direction.
Every night. Yeah. Who's coming home with a weapon? That's stupid.
Right, that's when shit's just getting started at night,
Exactly. Yeah, we're coming at 11. Sorry.
Right.
Over the door.
Yeah, and it's not like you had cell phones where you could like text your sorority sister and be like, "Hey, let me in. I'm at the door."
Yeah, no,
very true.
They used to, when a boy would come to the door and they'd ask for, I'm here to see Teresa. Then they'd say, oh, okay. And they'd get on the intercom and they said, Teresa, you have a guest. G was a guest for boy and V was a visitor for girl. And then we'd always send a spy down to check out who the guy was. And if he was weird or somebody we didn't want to say, we'd always say, oh, she's not here. We had so many girls.
That's awesome. So, Nego, I'm
cell
sorry, go
phone.
ahead.
You know, that's how we worked it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, and Georgianne had the same deal. Every sorority was the same at that day.
I can imagine. Mego
Yeah.
asked, what was Georgianne studying in school? Wasn't it journalism? Wasn't she an aspiring journalist?
So, yeah, as a freshman, you know, you're pretty much taking general classes. I think so. I know she had a Spanish test that following day, and that was the one that she didn't, that we knew there was a, you know, everybody knew she was missing when she didn't make the test.
Mm-hmm.
And then Bundy says, you know, that she came to after he knocked her out, and she asked him if he was
partner.
if he was tutor,
Mm-hmm.
if he was tutoring her.
Mm-hmm.
And
wow,
it's just so weird that she would,
poor girl.
And that's what's sad is that my friend that talked was the last, and they were talking Spanish, like joking about this test that she had to take. And so, you know, that was kind of something he I don't know. It's just, and this guy, I mean, I'm friends with him on Facebook. I just think about all that he's gone through. He went through a lot. It affected him too, because he didn't walk her home.
Oh.
Christina wants to know, did it seem like the college tried to keep it hush or trying to get the word out to find her?
You know, I'll have to say that nobody really put the whole scenario together. It was just like a crapshoot. Nobody knew what was going on. So I would give credit to the sorority fraternity system probably the following fall when we all came back, because remember, this happened in June, and then people took off, and the whole system, everything shuts down for the summer, and people don't come back till the fall. So this happened right before school ended for that year. Following year, like the first meeting we had was all on safety, and you know, the college per se was not involved, but the fraternity sorority system was. And we were given escorts to class. We were told, you know, 1,000 different ways to protect each other and walk together. And so it was a different environment from that point forward. We stopped putting the rock in the door. I think I'm going to tell everybody I did that, but who knows?
You may not have,
probably
yeah.
Rocks here and there, but yeah. We didn't know Ted Bundy was Ted Bundy until Utah, until he got nabbed. Nobody, I mean, they knew Ted, but nobody knew Ted Bundy until the following year.
Did the police question all of you guys, or just her close friends, maybe? They do any of that?
Because she just virtually disappeared. There wasn't her roommates were alarmed because she didn't show up. You know, she didn't come home that night. So they were interviewed. Her boyfriend, of course, was interviewed. Dwayne, my friend that said goodbye to her, was interviewed, obviously, because he was the last to see her.
Right.
But because other girls had disappeared in the previous months, it had become, you know, it was in the news, like another girl is missing. And that's what was people, you know, first it was like, oh, a girl's missing. Oh, okay. And then next month, another girl's missing. And then it was within from January to February, I want to say February, a girl in Olympia, or I take that back. There was a gal in Olympia that disappeared in March. So that wasn't right in our environment, but, you know, kind of made the news like, another college girl missing. And then in April, a girl at Central Washington in Ellensburg, which is 120 miles away from Seattle, disappeared. That started like, that's weird. She was a real straight-laced young girl. And then in May, a girl in Corvallis, Oregon disappeared. So that hit the news. And now we're starting to like another girl disappeared. So we
Right.
all in the sorority is like, okay, college girls are disappearing with no trace, but no name. And then that was May. And then early June, the 1st of June, the first non-college south of Seattle. So that really wasn't lumped into all this, but it was all of the attention was on these college girls. And then one girl disappeared June 1st, and then June 11th, Georgianne disappeared. And then it became big news again. So, in the limited amount of news that we had, one, we didn't get newspapers. I know I never read a paper. We had local television, no internet, but the cameras are out there and people were milling around and we knew that there was a problem.
It's just crazy because obviously, this girl didn't leave on her own accord because.
Well, that's exactly it. The day she did show up for a test, we knew she was one of the missing girls. We knew she was a college missing girl.
Yeah.
Everybody knew that.
And it was kind of like, okay, just let the police do their work behind the scenes. Like, there's nothing we can do type thing.
Well, people, all of everything was shutting down for the summer. Everything was literally shutting down. Like sororities were closing, frats closing, everything's shut down. It's like done. So it was finals week. And I think the houses were only open for like 5 more days. And then everything shut. So, it's like go home and I'm going to say when the Lake Sammamish disappearances happened, that hit the news. That was big news. And I worried about that. Like, oh my God. And then when I came back in August to college, it was the talk of the town because we had a name and we had a MO. They had Ted and they had the past. And that's when other people out of the woodwork started coming up saying, well, I remember, last summer or last spring, this guy came up. That's when my girlfriend said, somebody came up to me and asked me that. And I didn't go with them. And so I don't think she was ever interviewed. But, that after July, the disappearances stopped because he had moved to Utah. So all the Ted Bundy, the real story of Ted Bundy, putting all the pieces together, probably didn't happen until he got arrested in Utah. And they put the name and face together, and they I think there's an article in the Seattle Times, a paper, it says, is Ted, Utah Ted, Seattle Ted, or something like that. Is Ted Bundy the Ted from Seattle? Even the authorities weren't even connecting it.
Putting it together, yeah.
Right.
Crazy.
It took so long for them to put it. And yet from 74, I think his final killing spree was in 78. So, he did a lot of damage in 4 years. But
He sure did. I couldn't believe when I watched the tapes, the story about him when he escaped and he got down to like 140 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And went through that little square.
Tiny.
Unbelievable. I'm just like, are you kidding me?
Well, the fact that they would leave him
And the way,
alone.
yes, I know. The way they had their guard down.
Said, hey, they even tried to alert, like, hey, you know what? Bundy's like crawling around in the crawl space at night. You might want to check on him. And they didn't even pay attention to that.
Wow.
Right. They had their guard down totally with this man who they thought, I know it took them a while to piece state by state, because the states didn't communicate at that time. They didn't have any, systems that they could communicate so quickly. And if someone crossed state lines, it was like, oh, okay, he's starting all over. So it took them that much longer to kind of put everything together, like you said. But the way they had their guard down with this guy is just insane to me. After he had already escaped once.
Yeah.
It's just, let's leave him alone.
Even at the end of his life, trying to please.
Are you there?
Yeah, I think the connection's kind of dropping.
Still on the Zoom. Wonder if her phone died.
It could have been. Teresa?
You guys can't hear me?
Oh, we can now.
Can you hear me
We can now. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I was just saying at the end, he's trying to buy time and trying to get people to, let me tell you about, you need to study what I'm doing all about. He's so cunning. And so, finally they just said, we don't need any more from you. We know, there's nothing more to gain from keeping you alive.
Right.
You're just a waste. Because they were never going to be able to bring him to Washington. And, I mean, he was already going to die. But he managed to string his execution out for, till the very, I don't know how long he lasted. Really isn't as long as they do now. I mean, I don't know how long Scott Peterson spent on death row, but Bundy was, I think he was convicted in 83, maybe, and he died in 89.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know when his final.
Wasn't he the last one to be executed or get the electric chair in Florida?
Maybe.
I think he was.
I do too. I think he was.
Yeah. Did you hear they cremated him and they spread his ashes up where his victims
Washington.
were found.
That's what I was going to ask you.
Yeah.
That pisses me off.
Hello?
Like, why is that like allowable? Like, why did they honor that?
No idea. He requested that his ashes be spread up in where where he put his victims up in Washington.
In the
they
mountains
did it?
in Washington. Yes.
Yes, they did. Yeah.
Wow.
It's disgusting.
It's so icky. I know. It's so creepy. I can't even stand it. And now, where those bodies were left, it's all now developed into gigantic, housing development.
Really?
But yeah, hopefully he's not up there.
Could you imagine having your house built in that area where bodies had been dumped?
They actually kept the actual location of, where it was. They didn't ever broadcast that, but people have found it. They've gone online and said, "Oh, we know where it is," and they've created videos. Did he
give a description, like detailed, where they could find, like where somebody could find it?
Well, I don't think he ever owned up to it. I think people found it. I mean, like the hunters found the first dump site, and then there was another site close to where he was that they found all the other girls in a different area. He would just take them up, and he got off on that. Definitely.
Which is like a lot of killers where they go back to the scene of the crime, or they follow the news and see what everybody's talking about, what the cops found, and it's so sick.
It is.
So
I know.
sick.
It's just so awful.
Yeah. I want to thank you, though, for sharing all of this with us, because it really gave us some really good insight to this and answered a lot of questions. And I mean, maybe we can do this again.
Yeah,
sure. I'm more than happy.
You're a great guest.
Every Ted Bundy nuance of the universe. My husband doesn't have to hear about it.
We'll listen for sure. Listen for sure.
Yeah. He's never been all that interested. Like I said, he took the first book and threw it in the garbage and said, "I don't want you reading this," which I probably...
It didn't intrigue him like it did you. Even though he was at that park, he didn't think back and go, "Oh my God, that's so weird that I was there. Oh my God, I want to know everything about all of this." It's just certain
he's
people.
one of those really bad, boring types who says, "Yeah, I was there," and I go, "Oh my God, what happened? What did it feel like?" "I don't know."
I didn't even know he was
like,
right.
How can you not remember?
Yeah.
I go, "How can that be?" He goes, "It just, I don't know. I was with my friend. Who cares?" And so a lot of people, but thankfully there were enough people out there that had enough sense when he did carouse around that lake to listen to him, because they picked up on his come on lines to these girls who didn't go with him. And they were able to, oh yeah, I saw him talking to this girl and he introduced himself as Ted. And thank God that they listened, because I'm a real observer. I like to watch people. I love that. I love going someplace and listening and trying to figure out what that person's doing and, observing them. And I think I'd be really good if somebody had to ask me a question about somebody. And I've already got it figured out. I've already got them all. I got this all done. I've got it all figured out. Are you guys like that?
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Intuition sure. And yes, for sure.
People watch.
Intuition and people watch and observing and watching behavior. But there's a lot of people that aren't like that. They could care less.
Right.
Yeah.
Why? Doesn't make any sense to me.
John Crimes is in here. Hey, John.
Hey, John.
Hi.
So, John, we have Teresa. She went to college with George Ann Hawkins, who was one of Ted Bundy's victims. Their sorority houses were right next to each other. He says, shaking my head, Jay, get everybody on her show, LOL.
You do. You have the best show, Jay. I love it.
Thanks. I enjoy it.
Yeah,
I enjoy it. I've met so many cool people. I really enjoy it.
Well, you're great at it. Absolutely.
She is.
Oh, thanks. Well, I couldn't do it without you guys, so. Aww. Amy said she's a really, really good guest. You are.
Yes, you are.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's John for justice to you, he says. John. Oh, shit. Okay, so real quick, when Bundy was executed, before we're done, someone just brought this up. Didn't he cry? Wasn't he crying walking to the chair? They had to drag him.
I think I read that. And he was all collapsing. And,
yeah, like a toddler. Yeah. Like when you have a toddler out shopping and they just go limp, and you have to drag them pretty much. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Well, there was a huge. They show the outside of the prison, and they have all these people celebrating. I mean, it's a little on the sick side, but I think I probably would have been part of that crowd at that time.
Yeah, they were holding up signs, fry him, and all this shit. It was brutal.
You think back, it's like, oh, that's terrible. It's human life. But, there's something, wherever people stand on capital punishment, when it comes to Ted Bundy, I don't think there's anybody in the whole universe that would say, oh, let's spare the guy. Let's give him a chance.
Right. He's a human being.
Yeah. He deserves a right.
I think if someone deserves the death penalty, he was definitely one of those people.
Yep. And the electric chair, too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like my child's Thanksgiving declaration. Okay. Oh my God, that was so funny. I've saved that. I've actually laminated that and put it on my refrigerator.
What is it?
When he says, "What are you most thankful for?" I'm so thankful that Ted Bundy died in the electric chair.
Oh yeah, that's so funny.
That's awesome.
He reads it to the whole second grade class.
Oh my gosh. So John just said, Ted, but it's my death, so I'll be a drama queen, Bundy.
Right?
Absolutely. John, that is so true. I mean, I think he, to the very last second, was begging people to watch him. Look at me. Look at me. Mm-hmm. And winking. And, God, there's this clip of him at his Florida trial when he's his own attorney, and somebody walks in and he winks at them, and it's like you can just tell this judge is like, what in the hell, who is this guy?
So freaking cocky.
He is just like the worst example of a narcissistic psychopath loser. Thinks he's cool and he's not, and all this. Oh, he's so handsome, and that's what I hope that Zac Efron movie just doesn't make him out to be some goddess or god. He's not. He's creepy.
Do we know when that movie's supposed to come out?
I read that it's supposed to come out. There is a trailer for it, and I saw that. And then there's been some criticism about.
You guys want to play the trailer real quick? Look at me. See, I always find reasons.
Yeah. I saw that there was a trailer.
I haven't seen
it.
I
did watch it. somewhere. And then there were some comments saying it seems like it's glorifying Ted Bundy, which I hope it's not. I hope it's not a big look at me and how handsome I am.
I
mean, how can
I would hate for that.
I mean, how can you make Zac Efron ugly? I mean, he's going to look good, but
yeah, and Ted Bundy didn't look that good.
No, he was
he had that sticky, gnarly teeth and beak nose, and I mean, he probably had, because he was not your raging psychopathic, gross weirdo womp.
Right?
I could see, like, when you see him smile, he does have like a charming look about him. I could see, if you didn't know, I mean, I look at him, obviously, I know what he's done, but I think he does have like a charming, like the pictures I have on the screen right now, they're mug shots. So those aren't going to be very flattering. But when you see other pictures of him, like you said, when he's in the courtroom, that look, if you saw him on the streets, you would think he was like this smart, charismatic, well-spoken guy. I mean, when he's wearing the suit and the tie, he looks.
There's this one clip of him where he looks straight at the camera and gives this look that is so scary. I mean, it's a smile, but a smirk, and he just knows how to work it.
Yeah, he does.
How frightening would that be? I mean, I guess you would think 1 minute this is the nicest guy, and the next minute he's just this monster man, that
the creep.
It's so scary. It's just really scary.
It is. All right, I've got the trailer, so let's what's up. I'm excited to see this movie. Now I'm obsessed, I get like that.
I know that's what I felt.
All right, guys, here we go. You guys muted?
I was.
Yeah, I see ya.
Yeah. I saw the wink. Did you hear me laugh?
Yes, I did.
Oh my God. So he looks a lot like him with that curly hair. Yeah.
It does. I think August.
Yeah. I think all of us crime junkies will be there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yuck. He's so icky.
Yeah. He does. I agree, John. He does look like him. It's that curly hair he had, and I don't know. It'd be interesting too. I think it looks like that movie's going to focus a lot on like his girlfriend and the life, like the other life he was living, which I don't think we really know all that much about.
It's interesting. She wrote a book that I did not have a copy of. I was like, oh yeah, her name is Elizabeth Popfler, Copfler, I believe. And so a couple of days ago, I was like, oh, she wrote a book. That's interesting. And I went online, and on Reddit, somebody had a PDF of it, and I read the book, and it's really interesting. And it was just, it was posted. Now on eBay, the book is going for over $500.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's out of print. So she wrote it in 1989. I believe it was like right when he was getting executed. But the Reddit link just opened up this PDF, and it's short. It's only like 90 pages long, but it's really well written. And it's from her perspective. It's her living with this guy. So
everyone's going to be going to Reddit.
I know. I should post it. Can I put that?
Send me the link. I want to check it out.
I'll send you the link. Yeah, I'll send you the link.
When I find stuff like that and read it, I can read it super fast. Like I'm like speed reader when it comes to something I love.
Well, it's just an interesting perspective. It's on her life and what she's went through and how she had to come to terms with who she thought he was, and then beating herself up over it and not thinking, okay, talking herself down. No, it doesn't, this isn't it. And, it goes, it's very interesting. So I will definitely send you guys the link.
Cool.
And Jay, if you want to put that on your
I'll put it in the description actually, and then I'll put it on the Facebook too.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, interesting stuff. It is not out. I think it comes out in August.
Right.
It's out in August, so we have to wait. It'll be here before we know it. We'll just have to.
There's a lot of stuff out there.
We'll just have to research everything first before we watch it.
is Ted Bundy just like, I didn't know if it was like, is this like, why did you get interested in it, Jay? What made you want to revisit it?
I've always been interested in it since I saw that Mark Harmon movie. I've always just thought it was so
Oh,
creepy. It was the Mark Harmon movie. I thought it was so just eerie and creepy, and just how seemingly normal he was. That's what really got me. And I never really took the time to look into it anymore. I just kind of watched that movie and have gone off that, but I've caught it on Lifetime a couple times over the years, and it still never fails to creep me out, even though I've already seen it. So when the Ted Bundy tapes come out, Shanna's like, "Have you seen that?" I didn't even know that it was on Netflix. So I watched that, and I'm like, "Oh shit!" Then it kind of like just revived the interest in this for me. And then Shanna pointed out your comment, and I'm like, no way, I've got to talk to her. So
I know. I got Shanna's comment, and because I'll watch stuff that comes out, and I'll just make a comment. Now and then people are kind of interested, but they'll sometimes I'll get a message saying, "Oh, what do you know about her?" And I got Shanna's comment, and then I thought, oh, well, I didn't know if anybody else was affected by it the way I was. But.
Well, my dad was in law enforcement. He's a cop. He's retired now, but I grew up in Georgia, not too far from Florida, obviously. But when it happened, I just remember like my dad was like, "They're going to fry the SOB today." Like he was glad because, being in law enforcement and, my dad, it was just, it was just great to see justice being served for him. And I was only 9 years old, and I didn't know like the depth of all of the evilness until I got a little older and started watching just different things, different true crime documentaries and shows and movies. And that's kind of where my interest came from.
Wow. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, and all the serial killers, like the John Wayne Gacy, I've looked into that, and it's just it goes beyond that. Like for me, what made me like when I was a kid, I think the Adam Walsh thing really freaked me out.
Yeah, me too.
I think the whole feeling, the only way I can describe it is like this feeling that someone could just go missing and no one knows what happened. That has always just given me like this weird feeling, but I want to know more. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally. I think when I was a child, I will never forget, and I don't remember how old I was, but I was pretty young. There was this horrible murder where this guy killed all these nurses. You guys have any memory that this guy got into a boarding house and murdered like 8 to 10
Who was that?
nurses?
I remember. I've read about that.
Oh, it was like haunting me. Reading everything I could as a 7-year-old. Whatever I was, and I remember that. I'll never forget. And they had all the pictures of the girls and reading about each person, and looking at this guy who seemed to be kind of normal, and it was just, I don't even remember the name of all that, of who he was, but that's what kind of got me into that realm. And I've always been into that. I don't know why. I just keep thinking, why does this interest me so much?
You're definitely not alone.
Yeah, I've discovered that since I got into my YouTube.
Definitely not alone. No. And if you go and listen to podcasts, there are so many true crime podcasts. They're saying that is like the biggest genre of podcasts. So
I watched that Dirty John and listened to the podcast and then watched the miniseries. Did you guys watch that?
Oh, it was so good.
Oh my God, it's so good. It's so
Richard Speck. That's the guy who murdered the nurses.
Speck, that is him. That's the guy. Oh, good job.
No, someone in chat. It was Warrior Grandma. She said Richard Speck. I read about
Grandma.
that. That was freaky as hell too. Yep.
Oh my gosh, good job.
I can't remember if I saw a show on that or if it was a book. I can't remember.
Yeah. Well,
Richard
it was
Speck.
bad. He's horrible.
Yes.
And then, of course, the Manson murders. I was in junior high when all the Manson murders went on, and that was so freaky, really freaky. And in our limited amount of world news that we had, everybody knew about Charles Manson.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just pulled up a picture of Richard Speck. Yeah, yep.
Oh,
his face. I can't. Ugh.
I know. Oh, yuck.
His face is all pot. Yes, very, very creepy. See, and you look at him and you're like, ugh, creepy. I know we don't all think Ted Bundy's hot or anything, but he's not your typical killer,
No.
Right.
No.
Yes, that's right, Warrior Grandma. One of the nurses hid under a bed and he lost count of them, remember? The one girl survived.
Wow.
Yes, and then she came out after and all of her roommates were dead.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, if you guys haven't read about that, look up Richard Speck. That will creep you out.
I'm surprised they haven't done a movie on him.
I know, right? Maybe they have.
Yeah.
We'll have to look into that. Maybe we'll have to do a show on him.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Those probably long dead, but
we'll bring you back, Teresa, and we can get freaked out over Richard Speck together.
Yeah. Another lovely thing to think about before you go to sleep at night.
I know.
I wonder what he's up to. I wonder
what he's up to. I think he's dead, actually.
I wonder how that Richard's doing.
Yeah. Let's see.
Hopefully he's dead and
he's been dead since 91.
Good. I wish it was sooner. And I hope he died a horrible death.
He had a heart attack.
Oh, that's too easy.
Too easy, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that happened in Chicago, you guys. That was in Chicago.
Yeah, I remember that.
Wow.
Interesting stuff.
This is really going to out my old grandma in me, but what year was that? Like, I want to say
it was in 66.
Oh, yeah. I was a mere child, but very scary. Enough to remember and enough to have it affect me at night and not want to sleep, sleep with one foot on the floor ready to escape.
So he was born in 41. So he was arrested.
He could still be alive. I mean, he could be.
He could be, absolutely.
He'd be old.
Yeah, because my dad was born in 33 and he's 86. So
yeah.
He definitely could still be alive.
Yeah.
Well, he was pretty young when he was off and about doing his. That was a terrible, terrible thing. Very, very frightening. And out of the blue. I mean, it was like a Ted Bundy, just out of the blue, just didn't have any connection with the people.
Yeah, we're going to have to do that. Richard Speck.
Since I'm relatively very new to this whole world that I've now discovered. So Jay, did you guys do all the Lacey Peterson, or did you?
I did.
When did you start in on all of this?
My brother, ironically, had moved out there. He's a minister and moved out there and was a youth minister at a church in Modesto when that happened. Wow. And he only lived there for him and his wife. And my niece says, well, it was just my oldest niece, but they only lived there for a couple of years, but they were there when it first started. And I was like immediately sucked in, just could not get enough of it. And, I was in college at the time and it was back when like court TV was all popular.
Right.
And
yeah, I like that.
just get home and start watching all of that. And, of course, Nancy Grace, watching her take on everything. And, I mean, it was crazy. How about you?
Oh, I was sucked into that like nobody's business. And back in, that time, there wasn't a lot to chat about. I remember I would find groups, and I would kind of chat back and forth, and wasn't YouTubing or anything. I don't know what was available, but I did get into it, and I'll never forget when he was found guilty. We happened to be out of town, and I mean, everything we were doing, I said, we're stopping, we're not doing anything, we're watching this, we're watching the verdict, and it was like Christmas. It was like I couldn't believe the way I felt when they found him guilty, and maybe because I was worried because OJ was another big deal.
Yep.
That's what I was going to say. Is I followed OJ. Not quite as close as I followed Lacey Peterson, Natalie Holloway. I was huge into watching Nancy Grace, so I would watch like Jane Velez Mitchell, then I would watch Nancy Grace, and then I would
come home and watch that. I remember when Casey Anthony trial was on, I would get so excited the night, like the next day was going to be, I get to watch the trial. It was like what I got up for in the morning, and I was working. I don't remember how I figured all that out, but it was bizarre. I mean,
that was a tough case.
Yeah. So I'm so glad that I'm not the only one. I'm so glad to have met you, fine ladies, and everybody else on the chat.
Same. Welcome to our community. We have a really good group. We really do. I think we have an awesome group of people.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, stick around. Like you're subscribed to Jay's channel, right?
Absolutely, yes. I'm totally subscribed. Yes.
And isn't that crazy? Because Shanna found you commenting on like a Ted Bundy video, but then come to find out you have watched the show. So that's
crazy,
guys. Well, I've just been on the chats, and I'm relatively new, so I tuned in and listened and enjoyed, and I just put my little headphones on and sit and listen to you ladies and guys and Oni, and I feel like I know John. I feel like he's my good guy. He doesn't know me, but I know him. That's the beauty of all this.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it is. It's fun. It's fun. And again, I want to thank you for taking time out of your night. And I'm glad that we can be an outlet for you to talk.
Well, I so appreciate that. And I just, it's not, it's been many, many years, but it's an honor to be able to share a little bit about her as well, because she's a great gal.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome.
It's good to remember her too, for, all the fun times that you guys, shared at college, and those innocent times.
A little bit. It was an innocent time. It was an innocent time for sure.
Well, thank you, Teresa.
Yes, thank you.
I appreciate that, and good luck to you girls, and I will be in touch for sure.
Yes, thank you.
Awesome.
All right. Yep. Hey, don't forget to send me that link to the Reddit, because I have to read that.
I'll do that right now.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Bye, everyone. Have a great night.
Have a great night.